I am so excited to be making this video because today I'm going to break down how I use my obsessive ADHD brain to my advantage as a 22-year-old music producer scaling to 20K a month. Okay, so part of why I'm so excited to make this video is because this morning I was on Instagram scrolling and I saw Hormozi and I saw him answer a question about ADHD, and he answered it in a very different way than the way I'm going to lay it out today. And it was really interesting because he talked a lot about blocking out the distractions. And I'm going to talk a lot today about doing basically the opposite and, not going into the distractions, but using your laser focus to your advantage, because that's the beautiful thing about having a brain that loves obsession, is because you're able to dive in deeper to things that other people would tap out on way earlier. So basically, I'm going to break this down into three main scopes of time. And so one is almost like lifetime, or this era of your life, this career that you're currently chasing, or this mission that you're currently chasing in your life. So we'll start there. So basically, first things first is focus on one area. And for me, it's kind of broad, honestly. I'm not just focused on being a music producer. I would get better at production a lot faster if I did just focus on one thing. But my vision or my mission for myself is way bigger than that. And so even though I say focus on one area, it could be one discipline. Generally, if you stick to one discipline, you will have more success faster anyway than if you jump around from, let's say, law to finance to humanities. And so I recommend focusing to one thing. So as an example, and something that you can use to sort of identify this for yourself. Obviously, mine is music. And for me, the way I identified that is because it's what I was naturally pulled towards. From a really young age, I was always told by my friends when I was in middle school and high school that I appreciated music in a way that they didn't. Really, it's what are you naturally pulled towards? What do you feel at this current moment is your mission, purpose, vision? You have to think a little broader in this case. One thing I will say that sort of ties back to my journey is you only have one life. So as many people as you might disappoint, as many people that might say things about what you're doing, and I'm still learning that now, you might as well do what you want with it and do something that will actually fulfill you as a human and not just make you money and not just please your parents. So focus on one area. That's number one. Number two is I do quarterly sprints. So I'll challenge myself to dive in on one specific area of my business, my mission, each quarter. The reason I do this is because my brain is wired for obsession, right? I get into the flow of doing things and it becomes so much easier to do them. I've talked about momentum before on this channel. So again, this is focus, but in a more narrow time span and a more specific niche. So for example, I'm trying to progress my business. I'm trying to scale from 10 to 20K a month. Honestly, it probably won't take me that long, but within, let's say, a quarter, I could do that. And so what I really need to focus on, though, my number one constraint for me to get to that goal of 20K a month right now is sales. And I have a framework now that we'll sort of dive into that allows me to feed on this natural obsession in my brain and use what is already there for me and just take advantage of it. And I'm not saying don't sleep. I'm not saying, don't take care of yourself. None of those things. Still, health is the most important thing. But once you're able to embed this into your daily, weekly routine, you will become so much better, so much faster. Last year, I would say in the last 3 months of 2025, I focused on content. And if you, again, not to reference previous videos too much, but if you saw that video, I 7x'd my Instagram views in 90 days. So by focusing on content, I was able to have a 7x return. Basically, I'm going to walk you through this loop. I want to shout out Lorente from Self-Made Network because he's the one that showed me this, even though he might not realize it. It actually helped me a lot. So I break it down, or he breaks it down into 6 steps. Okay, so number one is learning. And this is where you deep dive into your craft. And so whatever it is, whether it's music production, whether it's writing, whether it's sales, whether it's client success, whether it's making content, this is where you actually really deep dive into the nitty gritty and go below the surface into all of the small details. And so that's where you read, research, and study context. And what I try to do with these 6 steps is I break them down into 1 day a week. I work 6 days a week, so each day I do a different thing. So number 1, day 1 is learn. So as an example for me, I just bought this book. It's not on my shelf. I just bought this book recommended by my mentor, Lee, and it's Sell Like Crazy by Sabri Sudi. This is what I'm going to work through for the next 3 months. I'm going to study the crap out of this book. So I obsess. This is where you practice repetition with intention. So you film it, share it, improve it. And so what you would do from here, as an example, let's say you're a basketball player and you're learning how to play basketball and you're taking free throw shots. You would then go and take 300 shots and you would film every single one, review them, share them with your coaches, with your peers, and then learn how to improve. In modern day, probably throw into chat and learn how you can improve. How can you improve your technique? How can you improve your form? How can you improve your confidence? Maybe it's like, I don't want to get too deep into basketball, but for example, that's one way you could do it. Okay, so then you reflect, right? And this is kind of what I said about practice. What did you learn? What worked? And what's missing? So here's a good example of this. With my content. So I've been doing these remix reels as my top of funnel content. So that's what attracts people into my brand organically. Those are my highest share rates. I've also learned they bring in the most followers, right? That's why it says top of funnel. So it brings in people. So that's what's worked. But what's missing is actually a CTA. So right now I do them with no CTAs and I bring in, I think it's like 1% of the follower to view ratio. But okay, how do I now maximize that? So then I added a CTA this month to like 4 posts and I 5x'd that percentage. It was somewhere between 3 to 5% for each of those. So now I have just 5x the amount of followers I'm bringing in per post. That's kind of going into the next one, test. I should have broke this down better. But try different angles, styles, techniques, and tones. So what was missing? The CTA. Now we tested the CTA. And this is how I went from, like I said, a 1% follow rate to 5%. From there, now I can teach it. So now, for example, in this YouTube video, I can go in and teach this obsession loop. I can make another video on how I 5x'd my follow rate. And so this is where you share your insights with your peers or your audience. This could be conversations with your friends, with your coach, with your family, if that's your kind of thing. Or it can just be content that you make to share to document your journey with the world and for yourself. And so last thing is literally just repeat. So like I said, build routines that rotate these steps weekly. And so for what I do, it's 5 days a week. I do those things. And then on the 6th day, I kind of sum up the week and refresh for next week. Like, what am I going to do next week? Just to sum all of this up, I know I've been really high energy, a little bit out of breath through this video because I'm like pumping out so much because I'm so excited. But I just want to sum this up really quickly. So basically you have your one main mission that you're focused on right now. Then you have your quarterly sprints that go towards your quarterly or annual goals. Then you have your obsession loop that you do as a routine every single week. And that's how you then reach your quarterly sprint and your ultimate goal. Being obsessive is often taught as a negative trait. I know for me, growing up, I felt different. And I honestly still do sometimes. But my mindset on being different is no longer a negative thing. When you take control of your natural behaviors and use them to your advantage, there is no limit to your success. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Please share this with someone if it resonated with you.